All right. Good evening. A very good evening, actually, to everyone present here today. My name is Fulel Taha, and I will be your host. So I am extremely pleased session of the author Saga. So we are now live on Facebook, just joining in from many different countries and areas. So let's start off by having a quick introduction to Pick a Book. So we are a homegrown concept that went global. So how we operate is that we get participants to read a book, research on it thoroughly, and present a summary. Now, they say the best way to learn is to teach somebody, right? So when we all read a book, we usually forget in a month. So by doing this, you not only help remember the book, but also it inculcates, it helps to hone his or her public speaking, communication, and presentation skills. So not only uh, by doing this, Pick a Book not only Pick a Book is in has marked its inspiring presence in countries, namely Sri Lanka, India, the UK, and Singapore. A span of 1 year with 600 plus readers, 18 plus regions, and 1,000 plus readers in globally, right? And we are continuing the globe. Pick a Book has begun this fantastic initiation called the Author Saga. Now, through these, the authors will be able readers and individuals with like-minded interests. Now, authors discuss the key inside a book, and viewers will be able to grasp the concept from this. Now, we hope to help the authors inspire fellow readers and aspiring authors as well on their journey. Now, we have a very exciting and interesting author today. So, Pramudith Rupasinghe is basically known as a writer without borders because of his writing style. So, basically, he's one of the emerging authors from Sri Lanka who has been privy to the world and what goes on it. So, he was born in. He soon discovered his vocation for writing, though he still works in the humanitarian side. So, as a humanitarian diplomat, he served in several countries around the world, has explored the unexplored side of being able to connect with cultures that has emotion of people who have been through trials, trials which are more distressing than world's tribe, right? So it is through to relate their meaningful stories, sometimes even ignored as an opportunity to be. The book he is discussing today is called Behind the Eclipse. Pramudith, thank you so much here and welcome to the Author Saga session.
Hi, thank you for having me here.
We are absolutely thrilled to have you here, Pramudith, especially after the conversation regarding this book. Now, let's dive right in, right? And by the way, our audience are encouraged to give their feedback. If they have any questions to Pramudit, feel free to ask the author himself, right? So I want to get right into the book, Pramudit. Now it's called Behind the Eclipse. Quite an interesting name, and to be honest, very beautiful too. Now, was there a reason why you named this book Behind the Eclipse?
Well, I think it's the most unexpected question I would receive at very first. At the opening of interview. I think every writer, most often when they start writing something, they have a title on their mind. But this was an exception because I had this title on my mind, but for a different book. When I first went to Africa, especially West Africa, I first entered Liberia and then I traveled across the region, especially Sierra Leone and also Ivory Coast, where those three countries were severely affected by devastating civil conflict. So I just wanted to write about the life of a child combatant. So what I wanted to, write was not the dark part of the life, but behind the dark part, there is always light, I believe. So eclipse, when you look at it, it's mostly dark. It's a temporary darkness, but there is always light behind that. Then when I started the book, I actually wrote around 2 chapters, then I gave it up, and then Ebola hit. And then I gave the same name to this book. That's how it happened.
All right, quite an interesting story actually, Pramudith. Um, so now there's like if I were to ask you the reason you wrote this book, what would it be? Was
Well,
there a special reason to?
there was a time like 2013. I had heard about Ebola before, and it most often emerged in central part of Africa, but it never, I mean, during the history known to us, it has never emerged in western part of Africa, except once instance in Ivory Coast, where there was no zoonosis. Then when it first, when the news broke out that there's an growing epidemic or growing case outbreak of Ebola in Guinea, uh, everybody was started to be very vigilant because it's a disease not like COVID today, but it's with higher mortality, uh, almost like over 90% average. So then, as we expected, it grew to a level of epidemic that hit almost three neighboring countries of Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and some part of Ghana as well. So then what happened as today our life started to change overnight. We could not give a handshake. We could not go to the offices as we used to do, and then hand washing became a ritual, etc., etc. And the whole world where we lived in changed overnight. So that, as an individual, like I was affected by that a lot, and people around me, but not only us, but everybody in those countries. And the cultures change, and so many things that we used to do change overnight. And it really became a story to write about.
All right. Yeah, I mean, we will let's also dive into the fact that this could be relatable to the current situation. But before we get into that, I'd like to pose this next question as well. Now, although this book was categorized as fiction, you are known to write it based on real life events, right? So, was this story based on a real life event?
Well, the epidemic was a real thing that affected, every single person lived at that time in those countries. I would even say neighboring countries as well. And then the timeline I've taken, yeah, those real incidents, because there were devastating civil wars in Liberia twice and also in Sierra Leone. That was once called the Third World War, and the Third World War in Africa. That's how they colloquially identified that. And then also there were certain like incidents of violence in Ivory Coast, and then there was other issues, social issues like poverty and exploitation, uh, etc., etc. And all these events and also the things in the backdrop are very real. But when you take the character name and certain incident that I have for sure, I mean, created for giving kind of a fictional impact and also to add some literal value, but all the things that are presented in the book are real. But for sure that we have to, I mean, I'm very sure about the works category genre is a work of fiction. So that means there are true elements, because I always believe that work of fictions are more truthful than the non-fictions, because they really carry our emotions, values, and everything, and what we witness in the real life. So I would say Behind the Eclipse for sure a work of fiction, but it carries such a heavy load of realities that we face, especially today.
All right, great, great. So, Pramudit, I was like you said, you had there are these characters, right? Could you tell us a little bit about the characters of this book, Pramudit?
Well, I will for sure talk about one single person, the main character, but not to an extent that I will tell you the whole story, because I really don't want to kill the intrigue. So, the main character is first known as Tamba before his baptism, uh, as he lived as a tribal child in a bordering village to Guinea. Probably readers may not be very familiar with this geographical location I talk about, but as you read through the book, definitely you will get to know. The things are very much depicted, I think. So Tamba is a tribal child who witnesses a similar epidemic or a outbreak happening in his ancestral village. And then when he is a grown up, and as George, because his second name is George, after the baptism he was given the name George, he recalls what really happened, like looking at the world that is struggling in front of, I mean, before this challenge of epidemic. And he recalls how smoothly their ancestor dealt with that, the communal level knowledge and etc. But his life, I mean, I'm taking the whole lifeline of the main character from a child of 10 years old to a grown up man of 40 years, who is finally a health worker who also contracts Ebola. But along the timeline, there are a lot of incidents, very transformative incidents happened in West Africa, transforming a peaceful lifestyle into a turmoil. So there is a lot about, I mean, in the backdrop, there's politics, there are geopolitics, there is religion, faith, you name whatever is there. But the main character, Thamba, is the person who tells the most part of the story, and I would call him a real survivor, a man who really manifests the human resilience. And his life symbolizes that light behind the eclipse, that light behind obscurity or darkness that we talk about.
Okay. So, Pramudit, you also mentioned this ancestral way of dealing with calamities, right? Could you elaborate a little bit more on how they actually dealt with these situations?
You know that there's one incident when the book opens. uh, I will briefly talk about that. So there's one falls sick, and then the other falls sick, and the other, and several people follows. And then there's a proverb of Kisi tribe. I picked it, saying that if you find three monkeys dead in the wild within two full moons, the fourth one will take you with him, which means it's a symbol. I mean, it says a lot about an outbreak or something happening among the animals. So there's a possibility. The fourth one says the zoonosis, that transmission to human. So that's how the zoonotic diseases, like come into human habitat. So, and then what happened? So people start dying. They make a makeshift while the traditional healer comes to the people who are affected, and he starts treating them. But the villagers make a makeshift village where the close contacts are kept there. That is what we call today quarantining, huh? So, and then the other part of the village go and stay at their vicinity, but they don't have any contact with them. So these are very interesting to know how these old, the ancestral village. Those people have managed those kind of epidemics or outbreaks, I would say correctly, in a very practical, pragmatic ways, in the I mean in all in those times, and we are repeating the same. But there has been this type of community-based epidemic management strategies in old African rural tribal villages. And we cannot, I don't really use the word tribe. I would call it an ethnic group, because tribe sounds a little bit colonial kind of.
Okay. So, get my hands on this book. Now, what is unique, I felt like, was the writing process of this book. Now, could you take the audience through what exactly the writing process you use for this book would be?
Okay, I will actually pick one thing that, one of the quotes that you highlighted at the very beginning, that Daily Mirror quoted me as writer without borders. Actually, what I do when the first of all, I have not written a single book about Sri Lanka. It's not because that I'm not interested in writing about here, but most of my writer life was spent elsewhere. So I don't write about places where I have not been. So I choose to go to the places where the story is set, physically observe and make it a first-hand experience. First of all, the kind of characters and their habitat, life in general, the lifestyle, uh, ecology, every single element that I would pick to write about. So, and all my books, I have 4 books, and all 4 books I did the same way. So there's no exception to Behind the Eclipse. But I had to study a lot about, like, mostly the Kisi history and their traditions and their, mores, norms, and customs and everything else. And then to make the same way that protagonist made from Guinea to Monrovia, same way, to explore how the ecosystem changes, how the the villages shift, and also different tribal groups or the ethnicity that he crosses when he makes his way to Monrovia, the capital of Liberia. And then the history of all these political issue turmoils, also the uh, and also the civil wars, etc., etc. So there was a lot of interviews, there was a lot of observations. It's not just sitting on a balcony and writing with my mug of coffee.
All right. So we were actually quite accurate when we said writer without borders, right? So coming back to the relatability aspect of this book, Pramudit. Now, could you take us through what are the relatability factors of this book towards the current situation?
First of all, I would say very simply that you know when you tell a story in very simple and very like much in a way that anybody could absorb, I think you can transfer knowledge. So the the backdrop of the book, or the setting where the story is happening, is the Ebola epidemic in West Africa. So few basic rules that can apply to our lives today when we are dealing with this pandemic. First of all, that when you deal with certain challenges of nature, you have to really change your behaviors. But behavior change is very difficult, because every behavior that we do have, you know, are linked with our traditions, our values, or our, ecology. So, I mean, and also cultures or customs or traditions. Yeah. So I think behind the eclipse sheds the light how challenging that that is to change behaviors and also cultures, and to face this like overnight change that the whole the whole country, Liberia, Guinea, and Sierra Leone, these three countries had to face. Today we are facing the same thing globally at like at epic scale, definitely. And we I mean during this pandemic, many of you, I think it's the first time that many of you started washing your hands before going into a supermarket or going to your, every single door that you pass. But we started that in 2013, but it's the West African experience. But that was there in Congo in early 90s, early as 90s, and then it recurrently happening there. And also, I mean for example, today there are a lot of discussions about dead body management and etc etc, and that was the same case in West Africa during the Ebola crisis. So I think many of us who lived there did the same thing that the world does today. And the book talks about whole as a whole, everything that we do now, trying to deal with this pandemic, but not as set of guidance. It doesn't say what to do, it doesn't use the word should, but it tells you a story how people overcame this whole challenge in West Africa through a story of one single man called George, who was earlier known as Tamba.
Okay. So while you were explaining how it can be relatable, I was just thinking, right? While you're reading this, it'll give you a whole another level of relatability while reading the book. So which is why I'm so excited to read this book in the first place. So let's talk about Now there are these authors, right? They write this book, and it has in the process of writing, they have learned a lot about themselves. Yeah, I could go on to say that that book has basically changed uh, some aspects of their life, right?
Mhm.
So, like, if I were to ask, put the same question to you, did writing this book help you or like change you in any way?
Well, I think you pinched the right point. I mean, right now. I
Uh,
think it's actually, I would say, it brought a immense level of transformation to my life. But first of all, how I became a writer was, I just it's as a byproduct of trying to deal with the work related stress. And my nature of my work is often allows me to sit on the rupture and look down and see how deep it is. So because mostly I'm deployed in conflict areas, disaster sites, etc., so there's no exception in this case as well. So during the process, I could really use it as a coping mechanism to deal with daily stress. And also, I think there was quite a lot of trauma during the time of Ebola, because I lost many of my very close colleagues, as well as I witnessed death often. And also, there was a state of fear in everybody's, like minds. And then at the same time, exceptionally, my sister worked in Sierra Leone with the same Ebola mission with Doctors Without Borders, and my wife and myself, we were in Liberia. So the whole family was trying to support this global crisis. And then my mom was in Sri Lanka. So you imagine the impact of media, and then fear which is generated through different ways of communication. And I went through a lot. I think this piece of writing helped me uh, to I would not even, I cannot measure how it helped me, to an extent that really it was my therapist. It was my therapist, if I use the right word for that.
all right. Yeah, I mean, like you said, a lot of we use a lot of coping mechanisms, and your coping mechanism has brought us here. Has brought us, and it's basically inspiring readers as well. So I actually, like yesterday when we had the conversation about this whole story, I actually had to talk to my friend about this because I was so excited to share this with her. So one of the questions she brought up was, what was it like, living through not only like even Behind the Eclipse was based on real life incidents, like this, but then most of your books are also based on real life incidents. So what was it like going through all these difficult situations and calamities?
Well, number one, I would say, uh, it's a lot of constant adrenaline and cortisol on your in your bloodstream. Number one, because you are always dealing with uncertainty and fear and everything else that comes along with that package. But then you develop very like surprising ways in which you deal with certain situations. And I think my work, most time, I work in situations where tomorrow is not promised. And also I see population whose tomorrow is not promised at all. And witnessing as a human being, as when the most painful thing is that you are a little bit more privileged, and you on daily basis you witness human suffering. that is difficult to deal with. And even as a psychologist, I used to see clients everyday basis of different like with different difficulties of life, and it itself absorb a lot of energy. Supporting people itself absorb a lot of energy. And sometimes when you are all alone in such a mission area, probably you are helping people, but there may not be somebody to help you. Then you pick a pen or a paper and a piece of paper, and you write down something, or pick your phone if you are lucky enough that you have enough connection or a strong line, like a signal, right? And so I think this exposure systematically elevates you to a level that you find new ways of coping to the with the uncertainty and the distress. But I would want to add at last that we nobody of us are superhumans, and we are very vulnerable. And at last, what you realize is how vulnerable you are.
All right. It was definitely inspiring to have this conversation with you. So one of the questions one like my colleague brought up was that what are some of the advice you can give for an aspiring author?
Number one is that uh, whatever you write, believe in you. Number one. Probably you may get bad comments, you may get refusals, denials, or whatever you name it, but believe in you. Somebody will enjoy your writing. Number one. Number two is writing. If you want to be a writer, don't look at the monetary aspects of writing first, because if you first look at that in this industry, you'll be really frustrated. But keep writing, and everything else will follow you. But you have to believe in the act of writing and make it a habit and continue it. Number three would be, uh, well, you can be traditionally published, you can be self-published, or whatever the modality you choose to publish. But as an author, you have to roll up your sleeves and go out in the street and walk under this hot sun, or walk out under pouring rain probably, and then take your book to your readers. Nobody will do that for you. Even big like publishers will. You are the best person to take it to the readership. I think these three things are very key. I always say that don't be disappointed if you get a refusal. Keep doing what you do and believe in yourself and roll out your sleeves and go out and promote your book by yourself.
All right, that is indeed some great advice, Pramudith. I mean, uh, I would also like to know now this book, how long did it take for you to write this book?
Uh, yes, here I would say this is one of the uh, okay. So if I could remember it right, the book is around 97,000 plus words. I started in 2016 March, and then I finished it towards end of October 2016. It's less than 1 year.
Less than 1 year.
Yeah, that's one
Great,
of the
great.
shortest time I ever spent writing a book, I think. Yeah.
All right. So you also have personally like authored so many other books. right? Could you tell us a little bit about the other books as well?
Yeah, and my very first book was not a work of fiction. It's kind of a travel log across. I mean, like covering 29 countries in Africa. That was called Footprints in Obscurity, which I didn't promote much also because soon after publishing that book, I realized that my cup of tea is work of fiction, where I have more skills, right? So then, as a fiction writer, my first book is Behind the Eclipse, and then uh, after 2 years, I published another book called Bayan. It's a story set in today's eastern tip of east northeastern tip of Ukraine, but the story starts during the time of during Soviet time. So that was Soviet Russia at that time, and I think it's more or less a different story compared to compared to Behind the Eclipse. Uh, and then my uh, next, I'm working on another book for last 3.5 years. I think that's the longest time I spent on a book, but I think I'm not regretting about that. And also, I made 2 trips to Bangladesh for that particular writing. I started in 2017 in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, and it's about uh, sex worker or girl, I would say, who has been trafficked and sold to a brothel, and who is inspired, or who was inspired by, I would say that, who kept her dream of going back to school until she realizes that. So I will not expose more about that book, which is going to be out most probably end of this year. So altogether, I have 3 works at the moment, and there will be one adding to that this year.
Great, great, great. So, could you tell our readers where we can get these books from, especially Behind the Eclipse?
Well, I think first of all, Behind the Eclipse has international. All the books are internationally published. By the same time, I made sure that for Sri Lankans, there is a very low cost publication done with Minsara, which is available across the island. And at the same time, if you really like to have kind of a book, international standard bind, you have also, I think, in most of the main cities, like the main book retailers like Sarasavi, Vijitayapa, you find the international edition as well. And besides that, two of my books are translated into Sinhalese and available in Sri Lanka. And if there are readers who read in Burmese, Polish, Russian, German, and French, my books are available in those languages as well. Those are available in most of the international retailers across the world, covering over 70 countries.
Great. So, this was an extremely fascinating conversation for me, and I'm sure our audience today has experienced that as well. And I'm surely going to read this book, and I know all of our viewers will want to as well. So, with that, we have come to the end of our author saga session. So, once again, which is a part of Pick a Book, and we encourage the reading habit by getting all participants to select a book, read and research on it thoroughly, and present a summary. This helps impart a wealth of knowledge, but also helps to improve your communication, public speaking, and presentation skills. So, if you would like to if you want to be a part of the Pick a Book community, or if you would like to see Pick a Book in your region and join the journey of inspiring people, please reach out to us via the email ID present on the screen, and we are all eagerly looking forward to hearing from you. And I would like to thank Pramudith very much for taking time out of his valuable, taking time from his busy schedule to come and talk to us and to inspire us and educate us on his books. So thank you so much, Pramudit. On behalf of the team at Pick a Book, also we would really like to meet you and have a discussion one more time about your other books as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me on live stream. And yeah, and I wish you all the very best for your all initiatives. I mean, pick a book, and I think that you will be able to gather a lot more and more people around books around the world. Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you, Pramudit. My name is Fulel Taha, and I was the moderator. And thank you again, Pramudit, for sharing your insight. It was a really brilliant session. So till we meet next time, take care, stay safe, and God bless.